Scorpio, what if the reason you've been so quiet these past few days isn't tiredness or a bad mood? What if it's your oldest instinct telling you not to open your mouth yet? Everyone must have said something like, "You're acting strange. Tell me what you're thinking." And you changed the subject or stayed quiet again because you knew something you didn't yet have words to explain. Speaking now would spoil something that's still forming. There is a huge difference between remaining silent out of fear and remaining silent out of power, and the silence that is taking hold of you in these last days of July 2026 has nothing to do with weakness. It has everything to do with protection, with a part of you that has already learned the hard way that certain truths revealed too soon lose the strength that only waiting can preserve. This video isn't going to tell you to speak your mind. It's going to show you why your instincts are telling you to be silent right now, what's brewing beneath the surface of your life, and what happens if you insist on speaking before the right time. By the very end, something inside you will make sense in a way it never has before. You've probably noticed that when you're silent, the people around you feel uncomfortable. They fill the void with questions, assumptions, sometimes veiled accusations that you're distant, hurt, or hiding something. And maybe you are hiding something. Not out of fear, out of respect for what isn't ready to be shown yet. Some people mistake this withdrawal for indifference, especially those who don't know you well. But those who truly know you can recognize the difference between your usual, everyday silence and this denser, more charged silence that appears when something important is being decided inside. It's a silence that carries weight, that changes the atmosphere of the room even without a word being spoken. There is a difference between remaining silent out of weakness and remaining silent out of power. The first stems from the fear of being judged. The second stems from the certainty that certain things, when revealed too soon, lose the power that only silence can protect. And it is precisely this second type of silence that is forming within you now, even if you don't yet have the words to name it. Think about the last time you kept something important to yourself and only revealed it when the moment was right. Do you remember the effect it had? People felt the weight of it differently because you knew how to wait. This wasn't chance or luck. This is a skill that Scorpio has always possessed, but almost never recognizes as a gift, because they were taught to believe that speaking is synonymous with strength and silence is synonymous with weakness. Notice how this repeats itself in small moments of your daily life. A message you read and don't respond to immediately, not because you didn't know what to say, but because you felt the answer was still incomplete within you. A meeting where you remained silent while everyone discussed, just observing, taking in every detail, every expression, every half-truth hidden behind a polite phrase. People think you weren't paying attention. In reality, you were the only one truly paying attention. But what would happen if you stopped pressuring yourself for not having all the answers right now? What would happen if, instead of forcing a conversation, an explanation, a reaction, you simply let silence do the work that only it knows how to do? Something is slowly organizing itself beneath the surface of your life at this very moment, and perhaps the most honest and difficult question isn't what you need to say, but rather what you still need to understand before opening your mouth. Because speaking now, without this clarity, would be like throwing away something that hasn't finished forming inside you. It was while searching for answers to this that I found this digital book. It's called The Divine Path That Guides Your Zodiac Sign to a Life of Purpose. And the chapter dedicated to Scorpio speaks precisely about this type of silence that is not escape, but construction. It explains why certain signs need to retreat before acting, and why insisting on speaking too early can be costly precisely at the moments when getting it right matters most. It's not a book about predicting the future. It's about understanding the mechanism that already exists within you, and that until now, you only used instinctively without knowing how to name it. You're reading this still feeling a little uneasy, sensing that something hit you too close. Perhaps you've already experienced a July similar to this one, where you chose to remain quiet and later realized you made the right choice. This discomfort you feel now is no coincidence. It's your instinct asking for more clarity before the last days of the month pass and the chance to act with this silent advantage closes. You already possess the genius, you just need to unlock it. Access is in the first comment, but the last few units are disappearing. Click now and start this transformation. Tell me in the comments, what are you keeping silent about right now, waiting for the right moment to reveal it? There's a common trap when someone tries to understand Scorpio from the outside. They think silence is an absence of feeling. In fact, it's the opposite. It's excess. So much is happening inside, so many layers being processed at the same time, that the only way to avoid overflowing is to close the door and organize everything first. Imagine a room full of mismatched wires, each carrying a different emotion: anger, tenderness, distrust, a desire to protect someone. Speaking before organizing these wires would create a short circuit. That's why you hold back, not because you don't feel anything, because you feel too much to risk speaking without clarity. And this is where one of the most difficult contradictions to accept about Scorpio lies. You want to be seen in your entirety, but at the same time, you fiercely protect the deepest parts of who you are. You crave real, not superficial intimacy, but you test each person before opening that door because you've been hurt before by trusting the wrong person too much, too soon. This pattern isn't a character flaw. It's a protective system built up after experiences that left their mark. In the last days of July, this system is more active than usual. Something in your surroundings, some pending conversation, some professional or personal decision is asking for more time to mature before being put into words. And here's what no one told you before. This waiting is not indecision, it's preparation. It's the time your mind and your instincts need to transform a raw feeling into a solid decision. There's a curious detail about this type of silence. It's almost always accompanied by a heightened sensitivity to surrounding details. You start noticing things that previously went unnoticed. A tone of voice that subtly changes. A glance that lingers half a second longer. An answer that came too quickly to be spontaneous. When processing something important, Scorpio transforms into a kind of inconsistency detector. And this isn't paranoia, it's heightened attention, because instinct knows that the right information at the right time will be decisive. And that's precisely why forcing an answer now, before you've finished putting these pieces together, would be wasting all the observational skills you've been accumulating in recent days. Many people around you may have even hinted that you're dragging your feet or delaying the inevitable. But what these people don't see is that for Scorpio, deciding too early is rarely synonymous with deciding correctly. It's only synonymous with relieving the discomfort of those waiting for your answer. And that should never be a sufficient reason to give up your own clarity. Think about how many times in the past you gave in to external pressure and spoke too soon, just to calm someone anxious beside you. And remember the result. Most of the time, you had to backtrack, adjust, explain yourself again, or worse, live with a decision that never really made sense because it stemmed from the haste of others and not from your own clarity. This memory, however painful, is a valuable compass for the days ahead. This process of letting things mature internally before acting is exactly the kind of strength that the divine path that guides your zodiac sign to a life of purpose helps you recognize in yourself. The chapter on Scorpio shows how to transform this silent waiting into clarity instead of letting it turn into anxiety. It's about using the depth you already have instead of trying to erase it to seem easier for others to understand. The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey towards the clarity and genius you deserve. There's a moment, almost always at the end of July, when Scorpio feels a kind of internal shift. It's as if an invisible clock marks the time to stop revolving around the same doubt and start moving, even if slowly, towards an answer. This moment usually comes after a sleepless night, a conversation that didn't happen, a silence that has lasted long enough to make clear what needs to be decided. The problem is that many people around Scorpio confuse this phase of withdrawal with a definitive withdrawal. Friends worry, partners demand explanations, co-workers try to guess if you're angry, hurt, or just tired. And the truth is, you're processing, not giving up. It's just that nobody taught you how to communicate this without seeming to over-explain or under-explain. Here's the most uncomfortable twist to accept. Perhaps the silence you're keeping isn't just about the other person or about the external situation. Perhaps it's about yourself, about a truth you already know but haven't yet wanted to admit aloud. Scorpio has a rare ability to perceive its own hypocrisy before anyone else does, and that hurts. It hurts more than any external criticism because it comes from within, and there's nowhere to run. And perhaps that's exactly why you've been avoiding certain conversations, certain mirrors, certain people who can look at you in a way that seems to pierce the polite facade you maintain in public. It's not fear of their judgment. It's fear that, upon hearing the right question, you'll be forced to admit to yourself something you've been avoiding for weeks, maybe months. Scorpio can hide anything from others, but rarely can they hide it from themselves for very long. This kind of withdrawal, although it may seem lonely, is usually one of the most honest moments that Scorpio experiences. It's when the social masks, the ready-made answers, the roles you play at work, in your family, in your relationships, all take a backseat for a moment, and all that's left is you and the nagging question that keeps coming back. Most people run away from this question. Deep down, you know there's only one real way out: to go through it. And it's curious to realize how, once you've faced it, that question loses much of the power it had over you. The fear of confronting it is usually greater than the truth itself when faced head-on. Scorpio knows this better than any other sign because they've gone through this process so many times in their lives, even if each time feels like the first, even if each time their heart races as if they were facing something unprecedented. Recognizing this inner truth before waiting for someone else to tell you is one of the central points that the divine path that guides your zodiac sign to a life of purpose addresses in the section focused on Scorpio. It talks about how to use this painful lucidity as fuel for real change, instead of letting it become paralyzing self-criticism. It's an invitation to transform what hurts into direction, not punishment. The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey towards the clarity and genius you deserve. Perhaps the question you should be asking yourself isn't when you're going to speak, but what you're going to do with what you've discovered while you've remained silent. Because Scorpio's silence is never empty. It's a laboratory, a place where ideas are tested before becoming action, where grudges are examined before becoming forgiveness or rupture, where decisions are weighed several times before finally being made. And that's precisely why, when Scorpio finally speaks after a period of silence, the words carry a different weight. People feel that it wasn't said impulsively. It was said because it was decided. That's the invisible strength you carry, the ability to transform withdrawal into clarity, and clarity into action that doesn't need to be repeated or justified later. In the last days of July 2026, this strength is being tested in a particular way. A situation is demanding that you resist the urge to explain everything now, to justify yourself, to soothe others' discomfort before even being sure of what you feel. And resisting this impulse, however difficult it may seem, may be exactly what separates a hasty decision from one that will sustain you for the coming months. There's a common scene in every Scorpio's life. Someone asks, almost demanding, "But what are you thinking?" And the most honest answer would be, "I don't know yet, and I'm not going to pretend I know just to make you comfortable." But that answer almost never comes out that way, because we've been taught to believe that having immediate clarity is a sign of intelligence, and admitting that we're still processing is a sign of weakness. For Scorpio, it's exactly the opposite. The haste to answer, when the answer hasn't yet matured, is usually the origin of regrets that take months to undo. Perhaps the most important invitation of these last days of July is this. Allow yourself to remain in the "I don't know yet" state a little longer without turning it into guilt, without berating yourself for not having a ready-made phrase to explain what you're feeling. Silence, when used in this way, ceases to be an escape and becomes a tool. And it is precisely this difference, subtle but decisive, that separates those who use silence to avoid life from those who use silence to prepare themselves to live it more fully. Some call it indecision. Scorpio knows it's the opposite. It's the caution of someone who has been too quick before and paid dearly for it. A relationship given away too soon. A harsh word spoken in the heat of the moment, which took months to repair. A professional decision made only to alleviate the pressure of a deadline, which later proved to be the wrong choice. Each of these memories taught something, and it is this something that is being applied now, in these last days of July. It's also worth noting how this withdrawal affects those closest to you in different ways. Some will distance themselves a little, bothered by the distance. Others, curiously, will get closer, attracted precisely by this silent density you're carrying without realizing it. This is how Scorpio separates, almost effortlessly, those who have the patience to keep up with your true pace from those who only wanted the easiest and most immediate version of you. The divine path that guides your zodiac sign to a life of purpose speaks profoundly about trusting this inner process, even when no one around understands, particularly in the chapter on Scorpio. It shows how to identify when silence is helping you grow and when it has served its purpose and it's time to act. It's a roadmap for this transition, made especially for those who feel too much and speak too little, and who are tired of being misunderstood because of it. The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey towards the clarity and genius you deserve. In the end, perhaps the greatest gift you can give yourself in these last days of July is permission. Permission not to have all the answers yet. Permission to leave some questions open a little longer without guilt, without haste, without the need to prove anything to anyone. Scorpio's silence has never been weakness. It has always been the space where true strength organizes itself before appearing. When you finally speak, and you will speak, it will be because you chose to, not because you were pressured. And that difference changes everything. It changes the weight of your words. It changes how people receive what you have to say. It even changes the relationship you have with yourself. Perhaps in a few months, when you look back on these last days of July, you'll understand that the silence you maintained wasn't a wasted period, but one of the most productive of your life, even if outwardly it seemed like nothing was happening. That's how Scorpio builds its own turning points, from within, slowly, away from the eyes of those who only know how to measure progress by the noise it makes. There is no rush nor external pressure capable of replacing this kind of silent maturation, and there is no external force capable of accelerating something that truly needs internal time to properly take root. You already know this, even if you sometimes forget and start demanding of yourself, as if you should function the way others do, at the hurried pace that the outside world usually demands of everyone. But you don't function like that, and you never have, and perhaps you never will. And perhaps it's time to stop apologizing for it once and for all. There is a silent beauty in knowing how to wait for a truth to mature, and perhaps this is one of the most profound lessons that Scorpio carries and rarely receives credit for teaching the world, that silence, when well used, is not absence. It is preparation for a presence that no one will be able to ignore. And when that presence finally manifests itself, before whomever it needs to be, it will carry exactly the weight, the firmness, and the whole truth that only a well-lived retreat, respected until the end, is capable of generating.